We're here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Happy to have you with us. Happy to see everybody chiming in on the Hurrdat Sports YouTube chat, the chat room. Connor Kavulak, Andrew Rogers, Ana Bellinghausen here for the final hour of the show. We appreciate having her here. Before we go any further, let's take a moment and tell you about another great sponsor of the show. And that is Alumni Hall, which is actually the spot where I got this hat from, if anybody was
People love
wondering.
your hat, by the way.
Yeah, I get a lot of comments.
You get comments.
On it.
People want your hat.
You know what? You know where you can find it? Alumni Hall.
Oh, no kidding.
It's Connor's.
What a
typing away.
Typing away
Well,
furiously.
while you do that, when you are making your Christmas list, when you're writing your letter to Santa, because maybe Santa brings you the hat this year, Connor, make sure to mention to go to Alumni Hall. Make it easy on Santa. Just go to Alumni Hall to find it. It's your one-stop shop to get all things Huskers, gifts for him, gifts for her, the kids, and the dog even, which I actually did order a dog toy the other day from Alumni Hall. It is a Husker toy. So Molly will be a Husker fan here soon. She hasn't been showing her bias to any team, but I'll get her a dog toy, although I won't show anybody the remnants of that dog toy because let's just say people will be like, yeah, she's not a Husker fan. They also have some nice polo shirts. Two great stores in Lincoln, one downtown on P Street, the other in the South Point Pavilions. If you like to shop from your couch, shop online at alumnihall.com. 20% off your Alumni Hall purchase with code UNLHoliday this week. All one word, no spaces, 20% off UNLHoliday. Get your shopping done. Head to Alumni Hall. Use that code UNLHOLIDAY to save some money on all your Huskers gear and gifts. AB, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You've been everywhere.
I have been.
I've been everywhere. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was nice.
You didn't think I had that.
Really
that
nice.
range.
Is that called a vibrato?
Vibrato?
What?
Vibrato? Something like that. Something like that.
What's it called? Vibrato? Is that it?
I don't know.
Bravado?
What is it?
Bravado?
Vibrato?
Like you have good vibrato?
Yeah, that's
Bravado,
what it is.
I mean.
Yeah, it's
I don't
So
know.
you're really messing me up this morning
Vibrato?
already. And you've already brought up Kirk Cousins.
No, I'm
this
just having
morning.
some fun. Come
No,
on.
we're right. I had to go to
show
Google.
everybody your hat. Not from Alumni Hall, but we're having some fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Smile.
Yeah.
That is a solid hat.
Thank you.
It's a Shane
I'm a
hat,
fan.
is
Yeah.
what it is.
He would wear this?
Yes, I could see Shane
Really?
walking in with that hat on.
Okay.
What do you think, Shane?
Oh, come on, Shane.
Yeah, pot it up a little bit more.
Why the is Shane walking in there?
With that
AB,
hat on.
Let's get into let's start here because we can talk a little Creighton basketball in a moment, but you've been covering the first and second round of volleyball specifically for Creighton.
Yes.
Correct. I mean, just what a moment for Coach Booth and this team. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, like that was a very positive sigh.
Yes.
Kind of like a sigh of like relief.
It is.
Because Creighton has worked so hard for so long and just really hasn't been blessed with the moment. But now they finally are getting their opportunity. Just how special is it to see them go on this run?
I'm so happy for them because this year was the 5th time they've hosted in a row and haven't made it out of Omaha. They've lost in the first or second round, and last year it was a heartbreaker to a really good Auburn team, a really young Auburn team they really didn't think they'd lose to, especially. And so many high hopes last year were just crushed. And unfortunately, there'd been so much heartbreak at DJ Sokol Arena for this team that finally to realize, okay, we're not cursed, guys. You know, we just hadn't had the greatest hand dealt to them. It was a lot of injuries that had happened for some reason, always in the postseason to Creighton that did not help them out. But this year, everyone was healthy, knock on wood, and everyone played their part, did their role, and I think they were just more ready for this moment than ever. And I mean, talking to Coach Booth and Kendra Wade afterwards on the broadcast, they were emotional, right? Like Coach Booth was almost in tears. I've never seen her near tears ever.
Yeah, because she's so dialed in.
Right. She's always, dialed in, like you said, very focused. And she was just like, I never get emotional, but this moment means so much. To do it in front of our fans. So they had won the second round going to the Sweet 16 they upset Kansas 7 years ago. And Rob Anderson had posted that video that morning before their second round game in Omaha, just this last weekend. And she's like, I just watched that video and thought, like, we need to do it in front of our fans. And I'm really happy for them. And they've got some good matchups coming up. I think Louisville's a good one for them, and I could really see them going far.
So with the heartbreak last year and the run they're on, like you said, they've got Louisville up next.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen a massive shift in attitude year over year? Are they more fired up? Or did they have this attitude last year and they just couldn't quite get where they needed to be?
That adversity has to show.
Yes. Well, last year, the toughest part was they lost Kendra Waite right before the first round. And Kendra Waite's their setter and basically the quarterback of their team. She literally sets up everything for them and is the heartbeat of the team. She's one of the best setters in the entire country. To lose her basically unexpectedly and not have much of a plan or time to plan to replace her, that was super tough last year and was probably a big part of why they couldn't get it done in the first round. But then you come back this year and Kendra Waite comes in with a chip on her shoulder because she didn't get a play last year, right? She had to watch her team lose that first round at home, and that has to be awful to watch. And I remember seeing the tears last year and everything like that. And I spoke with Ava Martin, who was a freshman on last year's team, obviously a sophomore now, and that was the first thing she brought up. She's like, I still think about that moment and I cringe, and it makes me so upset because you never want to lose first round on your home court in a year that, they're ranked top 20 and supposed to go on a large run there in the NCAA tournament. So yeah, it puts a fire under you and it makes you want to just say, okay, enough's enough. And that's the message I got from a lot of the girls when I talked to them before the tournament, is just like, we are so ready for this moment because we know what defeat feels like, and we felt it multiple times, especially if you're a junior or a senior on this team, that it's like it's over. Like, we're not playing these games anymore. Like, it doesn't matter who's on the court, who's not. Like, we need to show out in front of our fans and get to the Sweet 16 because they've been capable of doing that every single year, right? But volleyball, basketball, football, it's all about matchups, of course, and in that moment. But again, really happy for them.
How much do you think that want will carry them forward the rest of the way? Because you look up and down each team's roster moving forward, and Creighton obviously doesn't have the strongest of the whole field. They're a three for a reason, but they're very talented and they're experienced as well. But that want has to give you like an extra 2 or 3 jolts in the talent department, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in talking to the team afterwards and even listening to the press conferences, they all want to shock the world. None of the experts had picked Creighton out of against Minnesota, and they swept Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And I think that was very telling of the fire that's behind this Creighton team. If they go and sweep a great Minnesota team from the Big Ten, who honestly, in talking to them, they also had a lot of fire and a lot of just want to prove people wrong in their own right, because they come in unranked for the first time. I think it was since 2015, 2017. So they hadn't really been in that position as the underdog, but right. I mean, they're still a Big Ten team, right? You're never really an underdog.
I think that's another reason why Minnesota was favored. In there because they're in the Big Ten,
right?
Like, any team in the Big Ten is gonna. Well, I guess you look at a team in the Big East and they're just like, they're a Big East team, and but Big Ten, we're gonna make sure that
right.
Big Ten, they're based on their strength of schedule and teams that they played. It makes sense that the Big Ten team would win here.
I would never have guessed that Creighton would have swept Minnesota. I thought Minnesota would at least take a set from them, and so just to see them sweep that team, really impressive, and makes me think, okay, this team could go to the Final Four.
Yeah. So,
wow.
This team could go to the Final Four.
Write that down.
Yeah.
Imagine if we had Creighton and Nebraska in the Final Four.
All right, write this down. Ana Bellinghausen, Final Four.
That's
Creighton.
terrible handwriting.
Also, Ana Bellinghausen didn't believe in Creighton sweep. Let's write this down. Andrew Rogers believed in Creighton sweep.
You're just taking notes now.
Past Final Four. Okay.
Hey, nobody had Creighton coming out of Omaha, so we're already one step ahead there.
So do you see something, because I have to imagine going into this next round, a lot of experts are going to be picking Louisville over Creighton. Do you think that doubt is going to continue to fuel them and make them work harder and harder every round?
Creighton's going to be 100% the rest of the way.
They will be, and I think that makes it more fun, because in the Big East, when they play the regular season, they have the target on their back the entire time. They are at the top of their league with Marquette, and it's basically let's beat Creighton every single weekend for those teams, and they're giving them their best shot, whether it's St. John's or Xavier, whoever it is playing them. Now they don't have that target on their back. Now it's, okay, we're the underdogs. We come in with a chip on our shoulder. Nobody believed in us. Creighton is so underrated in volleyball. I think they haven't gotten the respect that they've deserved from the entire nation. And I think it was good that they got a number 3 seed too, and they're technically in that top 12, top 15 of the nation, just given that seeding. But I still think there's a lot of respect to be given to Creighton, and I think they want to prove it this year with the team that they have. So absolutely.
All right, let's switch gears and talk Creighton basketball now, because, and we can start with the big one of the weekend, Nebraska, Creighton. It was funny because we had Sauter on last week, and we were kind of talking about, I don't remember if this was on air or off, what like the betting line was going to get set at.
Mm-hmm.
With arms wide open.
With arms wide open.
And he had set it at like 3 or 4. I think it was 3 or 4. Maybe he even had it a little bit lower. And I was like, no, it's probably going to be at least 6. And I don't remember what it came in at, but I'm like, gosh, if Creighton like shoots the way Creighton shoots, I can't imagine they don't win by double digits.
Yeah.
Even with like Nebraska's physicality, because they are the more physical team. Not that Creighton isn't a physical team, but like Nebraska bruises you.
Right.
They wear you down. That's how they're going to win games this season. That's how we've seen them win games already. But I'm like, gosh, if Creighton shoots, like there's no better team in the country.
From the arc, I firmly believe they are the best.
There's no better team if Creighton makes their threes. And sure enough, we saw Baylor get hot and stay hot. And I don't think Nebraska did a good enough job closing out. Now, what caused them to, get into some trouble too is they like to pack it inside.
Mm-hmm.
You saw Creighton early on try to like get the ball into Kalkbrenner, but couldn't because Nebraska just swarms once the ball gets near the paint. And even Trey Alexander had a hard time finishing, which is why, early on in that game, you could have said like, gosh, having Nemhard could have been nice because Nemhard was so good at getting to the rack
creative,
and finishing and getting there quickly. Not to say that Trey can't do that and he found his rhythm, but it opened up so many holes on the outside, and it wasn't just Shireman making shots.
Yeah.
It was Mason Miller at times, cashing threes. Farabella was making his fair share of threes. You had, obviously Alexander, Isaac Trout make a couple of threes. Just in that game, how dominant did Creighton look to you?
After they made their first 3-pointer on, I think it was the very first possession, I was like, this game's over. Because I felt there was so much, not tension's probably not the right word, but just so much built up momentum to this game for Creighton because they had heard everyone speaking about it and how Nebraska portrayed the game and it being the most hyped up game in years. I think they're like, you know what? No. We're going to show how dominant this team can be. We're going to show how we can shoot the 3. And they did it. And it was very apparent that Creighton was the better team on the floor, I would say, for the entire 40 minutes of that game.
So did anything surprise you? Because for me, when watching, I was like, gosh, I was impressed with how Nebraska defensively played in like the first 10 minutes of that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was really impressed with like that look. But did it surprise you that, I'm going to say it took too long? Okay. Just for the nature of the scenario. Did it surprise you that it took 10 minutes for Creighton to really get going in this game? Or do you think because of all of the things leading up to this game, the way it was labeled, that Creighton should have been like quicker to go? Because it was a 5-0 lead, and then it quickly became like 5-5, and then it was like, hey, I'm going to make some points. Okay, now I'm going to make my fair share of points. And no one really pulled away until Shireman started
going off.
threes.
I think it took a little bit of time to settle in because the environment in Lincoln was awesome. It was loud, it was intense, it was hostile, and I think that alone would have had to help Nebraska in many respects of the physicality, and they were the more physical team for the first 10 minutes of that game. And I would credit the crowd, honestly, to getting that place rocking and making it more of an even matchup. I think the first 10 minutes, I don't think it necessarily surprised me. Creighton's kind of done that and had big second halves most of the year, Colorado State take that one out of the equation, which is a great team, by the way. I saw somebody.
It's going to age well.
It's going to age well. And
Yeah.
somebody, I forget who it was, an analyst said they're in their top 4 right now of teams, which
Top 4. I think
Top
that might be a
4.
little bit much.
I was like,
You may be
whoa, what did I
reaching.
just read?
I've also
Yeah.
seen BYU in somebody's top 4.
So BYU is top 4 in net right now, but let's
Yeah,
take that for what it is
stop.
this early in the season.
Okay, but
We are very early in the season.
so it didn't necessarily surprise me, but I think Nebraska, if there's something they can feel good about that game, it's the first 10 minutes and how they matched up.
What about foul trouble early on? Because Creighton got caught
Yeah,
with
they
the
did.
whistle against them, and they're not a team that fouls
No,
too
not at all.
often. Do you think that threw them off their game a bit?
For sure. I think that has to kind of throw a wrench in things right away, because then you have to be a little bit more careful, and maybe some of the things that McDermott was going to set up, he couldn't because he didn't want to put his players at risk. And I think they're just like, all right, we have to be more careful.
Yeah, I liked how they found adjustments.
Yeah, you have
or
to
made
adjust to that.
adjustments.
And they're not used to it. They haven't been faced with many foul, I guess, times in foul trouble. But the refs were a huge topic of the entire game. So I'm sure you have lots of thoughts, Connor.
Oh,
Go ahead,
yeah.
Connor.
I'm realizing now this is a terrible day for me to wear a Husker basketball shirt.
No, not at all.
No, I actually there were a lot of complaints about officiating.
Yeah.
None from me. For the Huskers, just simply outclassed on the arc. It was not even a question. Got dominated down low, and it felt like they started with an identity but lost it after that first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they were just kind of out there letting Creighton shoot away on them. And I'm looking at, we got Shireman hitting 6 threes. At some point, you got to figure out a way to lock that down. And they just
They're almost
couldn't.
daring him to shoot. I felt
Yeah,
like.
which
I'm
seem
like, do not
Well,
make that guy shoot
yeah,
the ball.
why would you let him?
Well, it's funny because Casey has such a quick release. Like every time you see him release the
Mhm.
basketball, you're just like, wow, how do you defend that? And it's the same with Shireman. Shireman's release is so quick that you have to be on him like glue.
Immediately.
Yes.
Like glue.
Like from anywhere, from the logo.
Yeah.
Casey's at a disadvantage because of his height.
Yeah.
Shireman's what, 6'9"?
Yeah. 6'7"?
6'7". Regardless, he maybe he's 6'9" in high school. The high school program.
He's 6'7".
He's 6'7".
Yeah,
Okay.
But Shireman's 6'7". He's not somebody that needs to create space for himself. His
No.
space is I catch the ball, I shoot.
It's over you.
Yeah, and that's another great point.
Yeah.
He shoots from above his head.
Yes.
Yeah,
So he makes himself shoot from about 6'9".
exactly.
So all in all, you got to close out better.
Yeah.
You have to find a way to get on those guys quicker. Hard part is you do that. What do you make yourself susceptible to?
There's Ryan Kalkbrenner.
There's Ryan Kalkbrenner right in the middle. It's a hard recipe to kind of complete.
They're a tough team to defend.
is, defensively.
Very.
Yeah, they're a very tough team to defend.
So Minnesota tonight for Nebraska,
Mhm.
big game. As for Creighton, they don't play till the weekend.
Yes,
correct?
Saturday morning, Western Michigan.
Western Central.
Central Michigan, I think.
It's one of the.
It's
one
one
of the
them.
Michigans that isn't state or the cheater. What should I not have said that?
It's Central Michigan.
Central.
There we
Michigan.
go.
What's their mascot?
Central?
Oh, Chippers.
The Chippers.
No.
Oh.
Chippewas.
Oh, there we go.
Chippers.
I was like, what is a chipper?
They're the wood chippers.
They're the wood chippers.
Flannel jerseys.
Well,
They have cool colors.
another point I was going to bring up because they're not obviously Nebraska's going into conference play. Creighton is still a little ways away from conference play. They still have a handful of non-con games and some big ones.
Yes.
Up.
So they got Central Michigan, UNLV, Alabama, and then they start with Villanova.
Yeah, and that Alabama game will still be big.
Yes.
Um,
I hate that they dropped out of the top 25.
But it'll still be big.
Yeah, it'll still
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
But as you look across Big East play, and you saw UConn play last night, they comfortably beat UNC, which that's a good UNC team. Also a team that was undervalued coming into this season. And I think they were undervalued because they were so overvalued coming into last season.
Mhm.
A little bit of recency bias on that one.
But maybe Caleb Love is more of well, there were other things that happened at UNC that made that an issue culture-wise. But removing Caleb Love from that situation was a good thing for that program. It was also a good thing for Caleb Love because he's been doing some pretty nice things at Arizona as well. But as you look across as you look across the Big East, you have kind of like the top three. We'll call them the big-headed, the three-headed monster in Creighton, UConn, and Marquette.
Yeah.
Based on what you've seen out of Creighton this season and knowing what you know about Marquette and UConn, is Creighton still the team for you that wins the Big East championship?
Oh, this is such a tough question because
Creighton on their great nights beat any team, right?
Yeah.
They shoot the ball the way they do better than anybody else. But is that good enough to beat the Marquettes and the UConns of the world?
I mean, if they're on, yes. If everything is clicking and they're shooting 45 to 50% from three, yes, and higher. But again, Marquette, UConn, all three of those teams in Creighton are in the top 10 right now, and it's really at any given night.
Okay, so you have on their best night, Creighton is winning. Say Creighton, if their best night shooting the three is 45%, 40%, what would you give their best night? 40%?
Yeah.
I mean, they shoot the ball about 40 times.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's
It's
hard
going to be a little bit lower.
Yeah. It's hard to get above 40.
Yeah, they shot 40 against Nebraska.
Okay, and you would think they shot pretty well,
Yeah.
right?
And it was 35%.
So let's just say they shoot, well, we'll say 35% from three. Do they still beat the UConns and the Marquettes of the world?
I don't know. Again, it's any given night. It depends. If it's in the Big East Championship, obviously that's at Madison Square Garden. You just don't know. It's a kind of a cop-out of an answer, but it's kind of too early to tell because the biggest competition, in my opinion, that Creighton's faced besides Colorado State's Iowa, where we saw Creighton have a pretty good night against Iowa. But if they have a Colorado State day, obviously no. But if you're saying the 3-point percentage
Trey
is
Alexander's
there,
not going 1 for 14 again.
exactly. Like that's not going to happen again. Man, I still put this team up against UConn and Marquette, but it's very close. I don't know. It's so hard to tell.
Yeah, I think that's a really tough one to answer.
It's hard to answer right now. Yeah.
We haven't seen enough out of Creighton. We haven't seen enough out of UConn or Marquette.
Yeah.
Like,
But that's
we
why I
just don't
asked
know.
the question now, too, because
Right.
I don't want anybody's thought to be swayed by, hey, they played Marquette,
Sure.
they beat Marquette,
Yeah.
so they can beat them again, or they lost to Marquette,
Sure.
so they won't beat them again. I wanted to set it early. I wanted to set the stage really early.
Start taking your notes.
Yeah, because I already wrote down that Anna didn't believe that they would sweep Minnesota, aka Creighton volleyball, but Andrew did on this side of the paper.
Sure.
So I'm just saying I had more faith. Like what it is, right? I'm not full of it. I've never been.
No.
I don't know. It's so hard to tell. UConn, I think I would put UConn, Creighton, Marquette. I think Marquette's a better matchup for Creighton.
I would
So
agree with
UConn,
that right
your
now.
top team, which is funny because UConn was that team this year that people were like, I don't know. I mean, they lost pieces, and
Right.
I don't see them being as good as they were last year. But shoot, they looked pretty good last night.
They did.
They look good.
Spencer hit some shots, let me tell you. He had a pretty good first half and a pretty good game at that. All right, AB sticking with us through the rest of the hour. We'll take a short break. We will also play a game to close out the show. We would do it with Avery, and now it's Anna's turn.
Let's go.
To play a little game here. Okay, we'll come back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio after the break.
We will be back